Hello everybody, welcome to a should you pull version for the weapon banner in the second half of 3.3. So Raiden Shogun and Kamisato Ayato are currently having their reruns, and this weapon banner is available right now at the time of recording. And we're going to talk about if the weapons are worth it or not, and just give you some ideas of who they could be really good for if you're not too sure if you end up pulling some of these 4-star weapons. And even, say you're trying to get Raiden's weapon but you get Ayato's or vice versa, and you're wondering, well, who could this weapon go to? Well, this video is just for you. But before we start, I try to preface these by letting you know that if you are a new player, you should try to avoid pulling on weapon banners if you can. It is better to build a roster of characters first, and then once you have at least 2 teams that you are confident in, then you should try to get 5-star weapons for them. But with that being said, let's start with... So this weapon has a substat of crit rate, just like the Primordial Jade Cutter. And it has quite a lengthy effect, so let's go over it real fast. It's called the Honed Flow, and you'll first of all, you'll just gain 12% all elemental damage bonus for free. And then the next effect is when other nearby party members use their elemental skills, the character equipping this weapon will gain 1 stack of wave spike. You can have up to 2 stacks of this. This effect can be triggered once every 0.3 seconds. So basically, when you use a character's skill, and by the time you swap to another character and use their skill, the cooldown will already be good to go. And then when the character equipping this weapon uses their own elemental skill, all of your stacks will be consumed and you will gain Rippling Upheaval, which will increase your normal attack damage by 20% for 8 seconds. Now, because you have 2 stacks of this, keep in mind that is 40% increase in normal attack damage only. So of course this is going to be a really good weapon for Ayato because that is how he does damage. Even though you activate his skill, those quick slashes you're seeing are considered normal attack damage. Let's say you pull this weapon in your attempts to get Raiden's weapon and you're like, oh man, I got this instead. Well, who else can I use this on? Something I want to note about this weapon, if you are trying to pull for it, is if you do have a Primordial Jade Cutter, which also is another 5-star weapon with a crit rate substat, these 2 weapons are going to perform about the same in terms of damage for Ayato. So if you already have a Primordial Jade Cutter from some previous pull, my advice would be just to not actually pull for this weapon. I feel like if you have a Jade Cutter, it's good enough. The only time these 2 weapons would have a difference in damage is if you're a whale and you actually have Refinement 5 of one or the other, then of course there will be a difference there. But not many free-to-play or low spenders will have a Refinement 5 5-star weapon. That is just my 2 cents though. Feel free to use your Primo Gems however you want. It also matches Ayato better aesthetically, so if that's what you're going for, and then by all means. However, if you pull this weapon while you're trying to pull for Raiden's weapon, you're like, oh no, who am I going to use this on? Well, you have a couple options. First of all, you have Jing Cho could use this weapon, even though he doesn't do normal attack damage. However, it's a nice stat stick for him because of the crit rate. Just make sure that you are filling out his energy requirement needs before swapping him to this weapon if you decide to use it on him. Next up, the other character that is also pretty good with this weapon is the other Kamisato sibling, which would be Ayaka. It's actually going to be a really good option for her, despite again being a normal attack damage buffing weapon. If you are using Ayaka in a freeze team, which most Ayaka users use her in, be careful with the crit rate substat, the Blizzard Strayer artifact set pieces, and the Cryo Resonance, as that's pretty much going to boost Ayaka to a really high crit rate. Don't need to invest at all in crit rate in your substats. You can go all in on crit damage or attack percentage or whatever. This could be also good on Keqing, whether or not you're using her as an Electro DPS or an Aggravate team comp, whichever team she's being in. Just try to actually utilize her normal attack combo. Try to utilize her N4C combo. That means 4 normal attacks into a charged attack combo, since your normal attacks will actually be buffed quite a bit, assuming you get the stacks and you'll actually do more damage that way over the 1NC combo instead. So just to reiterate, the characters that this weapon could be good for is Xingqiu, Ayaka, Keqing, and of course Ayato himself, but that's a given. Moving on to the next weapon. Now this is a weapon I got a lot of flack for in my weapon tier list video. I put this weapon in C because in my opinion it wasn't that good on a lot of other characters besides Raiden Shogun, and a lot of people were quick to defend this weapon, so to speak. I still don't think it's that good on a lot of characters other than Raiden Shogun. I guess it's debatable that it could be a B tier weapon. But with that being said, let's talk about the weapon itself. This is the Engulfing Lightning. It is Raiden Shogun's signature weapon. It has a substat of energy recharge, and it has a very short weapon effect called the Timeless Stream Eternal Stove. Your attack is increased by 28% of your energy recharge over the base of 100%. You can gain a maximum amount of 80% attack. And you also, as a secondary effect, gain 30% energy recharge for 12 seconds after using your elemental burst. So if you're not familiar with Raiden's kit or her talents yet, energy recharge is basically converted into not just extra damage for Raiden Shogun, but her ability to restore energy to her team. So this is giving you so much energy recharge, which is going to convert into so much damage and more utility. Now, of course, you just gotta, remember to build crit rate, crit damage substats for your Raiden, since this doesn't give you any. But if you are using this weapon on Raiden, you are getting a ton of energy recharge, which is a ton of electro damage bonus. So this is kind of where it's like debatable if you want to use an electro damage goblet or an attack percentage goblet. If you are using this weapon on Raiden, I actually think using an attack percentage goblet is better because you're getting so much electro damage already from her energy recharge. Not to mention the artifact set piece also giving you energy recharge as well. But if you do pull this weapon and you're running who could you use it on, Zhonling is of course our free bingo card when it comes to pole arms, as she is just a universally good character that just works with so many weapons in this game, and the Engulfing Lightning is no different. This will provide her a lot of energy recharge while also turning some of that into damage. So you can feel free to focus on other more offensive stats when building her artifacts. The other character that this weapon could be good for is Shenhe. If you weren't lucky enough to get the Calamity Queller, which is her signature weapon, this is a good alternative, giving her a ton of energy recharge while still giving her that much needed attack. Now, if you're looking for other characters it can be used on, I suppose there are other options like Rosaria, maybe a Xiao, but it's hard to recommend it for many other characters. But I mean, I suppose if you have some polearm characters that don't have a decent weapon, this is something you could use. But in my opinion, this weapon is very strong for Raiden, don't get me wrong, but just when it comes to using it for other characters, not so much options. All right, we are moving on to the 4-star weapons on the banner, and the first one is the Lion's Roar, which has a very simple effect and a attack percentage substat. The weapon's effect is called Bane of Fire and Thunder, and this will increase your damage against pyro or electro affected opponents by 20%. You can easily get this to Refinement 5 because it's a 4-star weapon, so that effect will be a bit higher. Now, who is this weapon good for? Not too many characters. If you are doing Keqing's Aggravate team, this is actually going to be her best 4-star weapon, as well as for Kaeya. But if you are using this for Kaeya, please remember that it's only when they're affected by Pyro Electro, so obviously there needs to be some sort of melt team comp going on there to take advantage of the weapon's effect. Also, keep in mind the brand new weapon that we got in the limited event is also a good alternative to the Lion's Roar, since it does provide her elemental mastery. Although, just keep in mind that the weapon's effect is very limited and it can only affect one opponent at a time, making it good for bosses. But if you're taking on groups of enemies, then the Lion's Roar, in my opinion, sort of outperforms it by a bit. Next up, we have the Claymore that I cannot pronounce. I'll try Akuoumaru. This weapon is a claymore with a attack percentage substat, and it has the Watatsumi Wavewalker weapon effect. For every point of the entire party's combined maximum energy capacity, the elemental burst damage of the character equipping this weapon is increased by 0.12%, a maximum of 40%. Increased elemental burst damage can be achieved this way. Now, if you're wondering who this weapon is good for, not too many characters, unfortunately. However, it is going to be Beto's best 4-star free-to-play weapon, as long as you are meeting the team energy cost to get the most value. And the magic number for this weapon is 260. Now, if you're using this on Beto, you already have 80, because keep in mind, it takes account your whole team, so you already have 80. Another character this could be good for is Chongyun, the energy cost, but he has an energy cost of 40, so it's a bit lower than Beto's, for example, so you're going to need to bring some... as long as you bring characters that have an 80 cost burst, you're pretty much good. Yeah, as for this weapon, there's not too many options, but there you go, Beto and Chongyun. The only other 4-star weapon that beats this, for Beto at least, is the Serpent Spine, but that is a Battle Pass weapon. Next up is the Favonius Lance, and this is a weapon that we have talked about many times on the channel in previous weapon banner videos before, just because we've seen it so much. But we'll go over it again as we always do. It has a substat of energy recharge, and it has the windfall weapon effect, where anytime you crit, it doesn't matter if it's your normal attack, skill, burst, you have a 60% chance to generate a small amount of elemental particles, which will regenerate 6 energy, and this can occur once every 12 seconds. Now, if you get this to Refinement 5, it's a 100% chance to crit at a much more frequent occurrence, and it's very advised to do so for more consistency. Now, if you're wondering who this is good for, quite a bit of characters actually. It's going to be the best weapon for Yunjin straight off the bat. This gives her a bunch of energy recharge, giving her her very valuable burst back quicker, as well as being sort of a battery for her team if needed. Now, this is also support Toma's best weapon, but these days Toma is a character that has his brand new fancy Burgeon comp, which seems to be doing a lot better than his support role, and it's much more advised to build him in that way. But if you are still building Toma as a support or a shield support, the Favonius Lance is also good for that sort of build. Candace can also use this weapon to help, funnel her energy recharge needs, as well as being a battery to her team. So if you're using her with someone like Xingqiu or Yelan for, more off-field hydro DPS application, then this is a good weapon for her. If you're building Rosaria as a support, also a very good option for her. Zhongli is also another character that can take advantage of the Favonius Lance. If you're using him as just basically a shield bot and you're happy with his shield if you're okay with losing a bit of shield strength, because you would replace the black tassel, I think it's called. It's black or white tassel. The one that increases your HP as a substat. You could give him the Favonius Lance to give him more of utility to his team, basically making him sort of a battery. Now keep in mind, whoever you give this weapon to, it is very advised to give them a energy or a crit rate circlet, just so that this weapon can proc more consistently. Alright, so just to reiterate, the characters, because I named a lot here. So the characters that the Favonius Lance would be great for is support Toma, Candace, support Rosaria, Zhongli support if you're okay with losing a bit of shield strength, and Yunjin is going to be absolutely amazing for. Moving on to the next weapon. Next up, we have the Sacrificial Fragments, which has a substat of Elemental Mastery, and it has the Composed weapon effect, which is basically the same as any sacrificial weapon if you're familiar with that weapon set. So basically, after damaging an opponent with your elemental skill, the skill has a 40% chance to end its own cooldown, and this can occur once every 30 seconds. Now, if you refine the weapon to higher ranks, you can get this chance to be even higher and more consistent and have a shorter cooldown. So this basically allows you to use your elemental skill twice in a row. Now, believe it or not, this used to be the best weapon for Sucrose, but ever since Nahida's release, the best weapon for Sucrose is now 1,000 Floating Dreams. However, this is still going to be the best 4-star option available for Sucrose. And it ends up being a solid option for other characters as well. You can use this for Nahida, even though Nahida has a really short cooldown on her skill. Just the fact that it has Elemental Mastery as a substat makes it a very solid option for her. This is also good for Lisa if you're doing the Elemental Mastery build, where you just, you basically just stack as much Elemental Mastery as possible on her. This weapon basically helps you achieve that goal with the huge amount of Elemental Mastery it provides. Now, the other two characters that can take advantage of this weapon, and it's going to be their best 4-star option, are Bloom Kokomi and Bloom Barbara. If you're building these two characters to work in a Bloom team, this weapon is going to help amplify that damage again because of the Elemental Mastery substat. Let's move on to the final weapon of the banner. Lastly, we have Mouun's Mouun. I'm just going to call this the Moon Bow because I can't pronounce that first part. But unfortunately, we have the worst weapon in the banner, in my opinion. It does have a subset of attack percentage, and it also has the same effect as the Claymore in this weapon banner, which is the Watatsumi Wave Waker. So once again, your entire team's combined maximum energy will boost the character wielding this weapon, their elemental burst damage, by up to 40%. So you want a team with high energy costs to get the maximum value of this weapon effect. Now, if you do pull this weapon, first of all, oof. And second of all, if you're wondering who this could be used on, it's a very mediocre weapon for Child. I know. If you don't have anything better for Child, this weapon can be okay for him. And it will buff his elemental burst damage, which is nice. It can also be a very mediocre option for Yelan if building her for off-field DPS. Again, not that great though. Other options are better. However, this weapon is probably here because Kujo Sara is in the weapon, or in the character banner, and this is actually going to be her best 4-star option. Alrighty, and that being said, that is going to be it for this weapon banner. What do you think of the weapons on it? Are you going to pull for either the Engulfing Lightning or Ayato signature weapon? Let me know in the comments below, as well as if you think I missed anything, or if you have questions about using a certain weapon on a character. I'll be more than happy to try to help you out. With that being said, thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like the content, and I'll see you in the next video.